Hello, my human family. I am here with Jessie Gender or Jessie Earl, depending on which place you encounter her. She is the person who asks, "Who am I? And what the hell is Star Trek? And what the hell is trans?" Um, I first encountered her a couple of years ago. I didn't start becoming a regular watcher until very recently.
You and many others.
And the the women of Star Trek is the one that got me. So
Yeah, well, it's the one that got a lot of people because thanks to Steve Shives for promoting that, which is what brought a lot of people over. So,
yeah, that's um it, well uh
sorry, I
eh,
interrupted you. It's my bad. Let
no,
me
that's
let me
fine.
ruin your intros. It's great.
And I don't edit, so unless something really has to come out, I don't edit. I've only had to do that once, so
So just to get all my expletives out right here. Yeah.
oh, that's fine. I'm not monetized. Um, so, I let's hit it then. Let's start it with the
Yeah.
women of Star Trek, because that was the labor of love that it was just amazing. The going through so much going through so much of the history and putting it all together as far as how women are treated in in the show.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think about where to start with that video because that one came at a weird place for where I wanted to create it and where I was in my life at that point. So when I made that, well, I guess the impetus of that video is something that I kind of express in a lot of my videos, in that it's both a way to celebrate Star Trek because I want to show that I love this thing. It's a thing that I adore with all of my heart, but that also it's imperfect in many, many ways. And it's done both harm and it's done a lot of good. And I was getting frustrated, especially at that time. It's still going on now, clearly, that there's just this group of fandom that likes to crap on modern Star Trek while also upholding the past Star Trek as like this perfect paragon of virtue. Gene Roddenberry's vision that was pure in every aspect, and the man could do no wrong. When the man was very flawed as a human being, even though I adore the things that he made and created in many ways, he also made a lot of terrible decisions and things. So I don't know. I wanted to show that we can have a nuanced conversation and say, this thing did a beautiful thing. It gave a lot of space for women, especially women of color and women's issues, but it also hurt women in a lot of ways throughout its entire 50-year history. And I just wanted to make space for that kind of conversation that I wasn't seeing on YouTube, because it was either you have to hate on Trek and you usually in bad faith and doing it very toxically and doing it with more, let's say, political motivations than necessarily actual criticisms, and political being, let's hate on diversity, let's hate on people of color, let's hate on women, and then the other side, you have to kind of feel like you have to fight against that and say, like, this is perfect. Discovery is perfect in every way, and you can't say anything bad about it. And I think it's like, oh, we can have a conversation that shows that every single thing has good and bad in it, and nothing is perfect. And the imperfections are what makes something beautiful. Sorry, I'm like ranting for a very long time.
No, no, not at all. That's I, I let it be known that we have a slight, somewhat of a conversation beforehand, and you and I
Mm-hmm.
talked longer than I usually do, but that's absolutely fine with me. But we talked a little bit about that beforehand. So,
Yeah.
but one of the things I don't toxic masculinity has become such a bad or a
Loaded.
troubling term
Loaded phrase,
Um,
I guess, is yeah.
Loaded phrase. Thank you. But there's a lot of toxic masculine, even before it came out. Oh, look, they're doing forced diversity because there's a woman of color and a woman of Asian descent. Well, an actual Asian woman.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, in the trailer. It's like, I don't even get where you're going. The trailer hit me better than the actual episode did.
Yeah, yeah. It's like heaven forbid, someone of color be in a thing, or queer people be in a thing. I just think we get, especially fans like that, they get so used to. I mean, it's a Star Trek's MO in general. It's like, oh, here's this straight heterosexual white dude who gets to go out and either teach societies how to be better, or he gets to learn himself. Like, Star Trek was very much a show about teaching people who didn't know subjects. Like, it was like, oh, let's look at these issues, these thoughts, through the lens of like someone who doesn't know anything about racism or things like that. And so that's sort of the lens that they put that Star Trek has to be. It has to be this like teaching show from the perspective of like letting someone learn something. But it's like people of color should be part of that narrative too, and queer people should be part of that narrative as well, and like show that we can be part of the process of educating about our own community. I mean, Star Trek is all about educating and showing a brighter future and showing a better tomorrow. And part of that means that you have to let diverse people of diverse backgrounds take center stage and have ownership and have agency within that narrative. It can't all just be, oh, look, we're going to learn something today, because for people who don't know something. And it's like, it's just an important part of it, I think.
Well, one of the things, since I am of a lot, an age above yours, of some years,
You,
when Kate Mulgrew was cast as Janeway, the pushback was insane. Um, if it had been anybody but Kate Mulgrew, who was, respected beyond compare, then there probably would have been riots at the Paramount lot.
yeah. I mean, every Star Trek series has had pushback, even like every single one, including I was gonna say all going all the way back to the animated series, but even before that, the third season of the original series got a lot of pushback as well. So like, there's always been like I think it just is more vocal now because we're more aware of it and there's more avenues to it because of the internet. But there's always been that toxic pushback. This is not my Trek,
Yeah. Weirdly enough, because the only I admitted it to Steve. I suppose I can admit it to you. The only, aside from Discovery and current Trek, the only series I've seen all the way through is Enterprise.
Oh, which is that's another one that's just a fascinating look at like retrograde and but also progressive mindsets both at the same time. I mean, all of Star Trek is that, but Enterprise is a very particular, very particular flavor.
It was very much. It was very jingoistic and of its time. It was.
I mean,
in a way, I find Enterprise to be more of its time than what I have seen of the original series.
No, it's very, you can, yeah, that was very much like on the crux of this whole like CW, like, yeah, we're cool, we're talking to the youth, and like Star Trek was trying to get in on that model, like the Buffy model and the what would eventually become like the Arrowverse shows and the like Vampire Diaries model. So it's very much trying to ape on that audience with as much as I love Star Trek, it is not the like coolest, hippest show, especially when it was under Rick Berman. So like them trying to like chase that bear, it was just kind of hilarious to watch. But also like in a weird way, like reveals, I mean, going back to the women of Star Trek thing, like reveals the problems that a lot of like Trek had. Like the way they treated women on Enterprise was very much like, look at the sexiness, look, we're, you know, cool and hip. But it also like highlights the same problem that women were treated with in the original series, because it's very similar, just in a different flavor. They're like a modern flavor. And this is from someone who, Enterprise was my first show I watched week to week, and I adore Enterprise, but it also has those problems.
That was the same for me. I was out performing. Unfortunately, I had a regular music gig when DS9 was running, and it was on the same night. And I poor musician, I didn't have a VCR, so I caught them when I could.
Mm. That was, I mean, my era was like the DVR era when I would watch things. But I just remember my way to watch Star Trek. The Enterprise was the only show that was on at the time, and so what I had to do was catch reruns of all the old shows. And I remember Voyager only aired, Next Generation and Deep Space Nine aired on Spike TV, and so I was able to catch those fairly regularly. But Voyager only aired in my area at midnight in syndication, reruns, and all out of order. So I would have to sneak downstairs. My mom wouldn't let me watch it all the time on weeknights. So I would sneak downstairs and watch episodes of Voyager at midnight, which was the only way I could catch it. So.
Well, your area was my area, so
Yeah.
we
Buffalo
had,
Gals.
yes, indeed. Buffalo Gals, Won't You Come Out Tonight certainly took on a different meaning at one point.
Believe me, I know the exact meaning.
So the one thing we do indeed have one thing in common. We're good friends with Steve Shives. So
that is it. Yeah.
Yeah, we have nothing else. So we're both trans. Your channel went through 3 pretty distinct stages. And you even have the where I'm going from here thing, where you didn't actually go where you said you were going.
I know. Yeah, it's the YouTube way. You kind of make hopes and say, this is what I'm going to do, and then you never deliver, because that's how your mind goes. But
well, doing the interview thing was not where this channel was supposed to go at all. This was I wanted to talk to 3 people, and that was going to be it. 20, you're 27 now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, the gender stuff was a very large part of your early channel. I did not watch that first 8, and I apologize for that. I really meant to, and I just didn't get the time.
How dare you not watch every single thing of all the stuff that I've made? No, you're totally fine.
But yeah, you talked a lot about the gender stuff. What are the crossover times from when you were working at the Advocate? Because
I think it was the same time. I mean, I started doing gender stuff a little bit before then, and it was kind of part of how my sorry, my cat jumped up on my bed. I started a little bit before, because it was the time that I was transitioning. So I was learning all of this stuff too, and getting involved in the community and figuring everything out. And so when you do that, it's like, I want to make stuff, and I'm also learning stuff. And so I want to just put it out into the world. And then I got the job at the Advocate. And so once I started working there, a lot of my content, a lot of my just everyday thought process was worrying about trans issues and gender stuff and politics and how they all connected. And so that became kind of my focus. And also around the time that Trump got elected, because when he got elected, I mean, I just remember 2015, 2016, right before he got elected, I was like, yeah, he's concerning, but I don't really care much about politics. It's fine. I can just sit here. And then you jump forward to me today where I'm like, all right, socialism, let's take over. Let's radicalize everybody. Let's like personalist political. Let's do this thing. Whereas like back then I was just sort of like just getting into that. So yeah, I think that's sort of where it all came out of, is like my transition, and then getting a job at the Advocate just made it ever present. And then also Trump as well.
What, how does one get a job at the Advocate?
At the time, I was working at a company called Deluxe, and my job was, if you ever buy anything on iTunes, like when you go on iTunes and it has like, you scroll down and it has the list of like all the actors that are in there, the synopses of all the episodes. My job was going through and making all of that metadata, which was, it was really boring and dull, and you have to get it so perfectly right. It was not a great job. The people I worked with were wonderful. The company was not great. Without going too much further into it. But yeah, so while I was working there, I was trying to like make my own content, but I was also kind of depressed working there and wanting to do more. And I was doing all this like trans stuff. And so a friend of mine who was also trans, he worked for Transparent. He was an assistant to, I'm blanking on the person who runs Transparent's name, but the head writer for that show. And he overheard people saying that there was a job opening at the Advocate and that they were looking for video editors who were transgender. I'm like, well, look at me, I can do that. So I applied, and I had just done a few freelance gigs that made me look very nice, which was good because I just did like a trailer for a Lindsay Lohan reality show that had never come out as like a freelance gig. It never eventually came out, but the trailer's still out there. And and so they liked my work and they hired me. So it was kind of serendipitous, and just kind of a friend threw it my way, and I said, yeah, sure, let's go for it.
Well, having friends is always a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Had I known that Transparent was looking for writers, one of my friends is in the writing credits. So
awesome. It's another show that I have many feelings on, positive and negative.
Yeah, I just I recently just a quick thing. I recently had a friend of mine who was openly trans back in the day. We're the same age, and she came out. I met her in '92, and she was already transitioned. So, recently she said, well, if you haven't watched Pose, then you're not a real trans person. I'm like, okay. So
I mean, I've gotten that same thing. I was at a Los Angeles Comic-Con about 2 years ago, or right when Pose started. And I walked up to a comic book artist, and I was just talking to them, and he just started going off about Pose because I'm visibly trans. And so he just started talking about it, and he's just like, oh, isn't it great and wonderful? Just assuming I had seen it, and I'm just having to go there. It's like, I haven't watched it yet, but I was like nodding, like, yeah, sure. It's like, I feel like someone's going to take away my trans card for not watching Pose. Like I'm not doing it right, you know? I mean, I've seen it now. It's a great show, but.
Okay. I was going to say, if you really want to know what it was like to be queer then, that's what it was like to be queer then. It's
been super informative. I mean, a lot of it I learned during my time at the Advocate, which was also super informative as a like connecting with the queer community and like learning the history of the queer community. But Pose is a great show, and it's just funny because there's like certain touchstones of like, especially in queer culture, and I feel like any minority group probably has this as well. But for queer culture is like these touchstones are like, you haven't seen that, well then you're a bad queer person, you know. It's like you got to see that, you got to see Rocky Horror, you got to see you
Yes.
know, what else is there? There's a few out there that you could just say like, oh, if you haven't watched that, then you know your trans card is revoked.
I have I have my child is trans as well, which
Mm.
my child came out first. I always say that as soon as I say, because um but she, god damn it.
Hey, yeah,
it
this
it it happens.
happens. Yeah, don't ever. This is, I mean, you know this just as well as I do. It's like people fuck up pronouns all the time. I've misgendered myself numerous times. I've misgendered myself. I've misgendered my cat. It happens. So like, people get kind of hung up on like, oh, you've misgendered somebody. It's like, as long as you're trying and working towards it, that's all that matters. And as long as you're not being a jerk about it.
Well, he has a non-binary partner, and I walked downstairs at one point, and the beginning of Rocky Horror was going, and they paused it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know we had a copy. um, said yes. And my son said yes. I said if you're a queer person, you have to see Rocky Horror.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't imagine seeing it as a movie.
I mean, yeah, I the first time I saw it, it was just like in a big theater screening, where everyone was throwing forks. And then the second time I saw it, it was a rated R show with actual performers. So that one was fascinating as well. I don't think I've ever sat down and just watched it.
I did once, and it's fine, but at this point, you know, all the stuff that goes around it was in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nearly impossible. Even when I was walking past, you know, I got my coffee and walked past, and I started saying the lines that I needed to say as I was walking up the stairs.
Mm-hmm. I love those community experiences. That's why I love cinema so much, because you get to have those moments.
The reason I watched Transparent before Pose, since this is how this started, was because of the involvement of Our Lady J, who I will follow anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that she was part of Transparent for, you know, season 3 and 4. Like, oh my god. Okay. Yes. Well, so I blitzed both shows within a week.
They're well worth it. I remember when I worked at the Advocate, it was I felt like I watched all of Transparent right when I started working at it, because I'm like, I need to know everything. I need to be up to date on all the queer stuff. So yeah.
And as problematic as a lot of it is, a lot of it isn't, and a lot of it is it captures enough of the experience properly.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think.
going back to what I was talking about when Star Trek, stuff is both good and bad. Nothing is perfect. And I feel like the problem when we get into criticism of stuff, because this is the reaction. I was even talking to my roommate about this. Like, I was talking about Picard and Discovery and like making some criticisms of stuff. And I'm like, the goal of criticism, at least on like this level, when we're trying to have a nuanced discussion, is not to say that thing bad or thing good, but to say like, here's something that this made me think about. Like, and this, yes, we should hold works accountable when they're harmful. Like the original series, as much as I love it, was harmful towards women in a lot of ways, and it should be held accountable for that. But also, the mistakes that Star Trek and Transparent and all these other things make in their storytelling also illuminates worthwhile conversation. And all art does that. All art is imperfect. All art is wonderful and horrible, and it's all about the discussion that comes out of that clash of the things that we love, the things that we hate, and there's varying degrees to that. And the only time to really just harp on it is when it's harmful to directly harmful to a community. So.
I think one of the things that specifically, let's hit transparent. I think one of the things it did right was deal with, especially someone like me who's older. I'm turning 55 this week. I said
Happy
that
birthday.
earlier.
Yeah.
And I came out in July of 2018, so though everybody was about fucking time.
I also know that, I mean, my family all thought I was just gay, so I was like adding layers. Like, we just thought you were gay, so I guess surprise.
There's that.
Yeah.
The I how it affects families in how you're not just trans yourself. Everybody is transitioning around you.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, if you have a family. I live with my ex-wife and her fiance and my child and his fiance, his partner.
Mm-hmm.
So at least now the trans people outnumber the cis people, but which is
I love that when that happens. Like, as soon as I came out, like, my queer family grew. It's like I know more queer people now than I know cis people. I had an Oscar party last night, and like, I sat there. I had 3 of my guy friends come over, and there was like a room. There was like 15 of us, and everyone left, and my roommate sat down next to me. He's like, "So your three guy friends, they were the only non-queer people here," and I was like, "Huh, yeah." I didn't even think about that, but they were the only straight dudes there. So it was just kind of funny how you build that community.
Yeah, my I had a friend who I dated briefly, but we remained very close. And she said, when I came out, she said, "I noticed you were gathering trans people, a lot of trans friends. There are only 2 types of people who do that, and I know you're not one of them." So I said, "No, I'm not a chaser." So
There you go.
she said, "Yeah, that kind of gave me a real big."
That's
But
beautiful.
you're in California now. You're you're in LA. There's no.
Yeah,
It's a big enough place. I don't have to
it's fine.
hide that.
I've talked about that. I mean, if someone does the work to find me, you've earned it.
Do not challenge them to.
Yeah, no, I know. It's probably a bad joke, but it's just funny.
And I'm in Buffalo still, which
Stay warm.
me and Harvey Weinstein. I hope I represent Buffalo better than he did.
Yeah, you literally would have to try very, very hard to do worse.
I have a story, but it's for another time. Not about me, about Harvey.
Gotcha.
It's a safe place here for being trans. A lot of trans people import to here. What is it like where you are?
I mean, it's really good. I mean, I have many, many thoughts about Los Angeles. None of them particularly kind in terms about the city and a lot of the industry out here. But one of the positive things is I do think there's a very strong and vibrant, caring queer community out here. I've met so many wonderful, kind queer people, and like, it's just kind of like seeped out into the wider culture of Los Angeles. Like, I never feel like I'm going to have a problem in LA for being trans. Like, I feel like every space is affirming and accepting. Like, I go to a bar and they'll like ask for pronouns and like things like that. And it's very wonderful in that respect. And, I'm very much the West Coast elite So I hope that that's sort of seeping out into other areas of the country, but at least here in Los Angeles, I feel very safe in that aspect. And that's one of the few nice things I will say about Los Angeles, because it's not my favorite place to be, but it's where the work is at the moment. So.
Well, I've wondered why Buffalo is like this. Why specifically Buffalo is such a affirming space for trans people.
I'd have to. I remember doing research on it a while ago, and it's since lost in my brain. But I remember doing research in college or something. But there was Buffalo does have a strong queer history, and has had several trans activists that lived there and did work there years ago. And like I said, for some reason, the specifics are leaving my mind, so I don't want to speak too much on it. But I do remember there being a big trans advocate that was based in Buffalo that probably did a lot of work towards making Buffalo a very affirming place.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I went to high school here, and a generic queer kid. No one was sure where I landed in the thing.
Also know that feeling too.
Apparently I was out for a bit during high school, so out as trans a bit during high school when I found out that was a thing you could be.
Mm-hmm.
But going to college back in Stony Brook, back on Long Island, it was like a different atmosphere. I feel like college atmosphere, I could be myself. That was not even close to the case,
Yeah. That's different for me because what's funny is I grew up in a small farming school outside of Batavia, New York.
Yeah.
And I was not out there, though it was fairly obvious to a lot of people. As I joked about, like, people thought I was, I think it was before where we were talking, where I was like, people thought I was just gay. And also the irony too, that both I was the valedictorian, not to toot my own horn, but I was the valedictorian in my class, and the valedictorian before me and the valedictorian after me, or sorry, the two valedictorians before me were both gay as well, came out as gay. So that's just kind of hysterical. But yeah, I went to a small farming school, and as much as I adore that school, and they are more affirming than many places that I've been. Like, I've gone back there after coming out, and everyone's been kind and nice and accepting, and that's really wonderful, especially for a very conservative area. It also wasn't the most comfortable place to come out. But then when I finally went to college and I met some queer friends, that was the people that finally made me comfortable enough to come out.
It is fun. I always gravitated towards the trans people wherever I found them. Even when I didn't know that's who I was hanging out with. I have sort of a trans blindness. I don't I don't no trans star, but apparently I find them, but I don't notice that people are anything but people. When this is the other thing I was saying I wanted to get into, because on you're having facial feminization surgery soon.
Mm-hmm. That and so the one I'm getting, and I actually have thought long and hard about this, and we can talk about this, but I'm getting breast augmentation surgery next month, and then facial feminization surgery I don't know, I don't have a date for it yet, but sometime this year, once the surgeon is able to schedule it.
Well, this is as close as I'm getting to a C cup, so.
You had that. I feel like you had that cup the entire time just to set up that joke.
You think?
Beautiful. You have no idea how much I appreciate the long road to a good pun. That's wonderful.
Well, I mean, this is my regular drinking cup, but yes, I did have it ready in my hand.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. But I know you wanted to get into talking about this because, yeah, I have many thoughts on it too myself.
I haven't. I mean, I see myself on camera a lot now. I mean, for someone who couldn't look in the mirror for 18, 20 years.
Hmm.
Um,
I know that
uh,
feeling too.
yeah, I was. That's one of the things I was surprised at when I did the first trans meeting, and I mentioned this. I said, "Well, this will probably sound weird," and everybody went, "Nope, that doesn't sound weird."
Mm-hmm.
Um, the, I mean, I get to see myself a lot. Um,
Yeah, me too. I
uh,
have to stare at myself in the editing bay all the time.
and I, I I've considered it. I mean, there's leftovers from being fat, which is
Hmm.
right down in here mostly.
Me
I
too.
would,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd consider that, but I don't know. One of the things if I'm gonna be out transit, I almost think it doesn't matter. Although transitioning is not for other people either, it's for me, and
Well, yeah. This is
it's
it gets. I mean, this whole issue gets really complicated because, and like I said, it's something that I thought a ton about because, and I'm gonna actually be doing. I just recorded a video that I'm probably gonna re-record some of because I wanted to talk about a lot of this. And I was trying to do it
okay.
in like comparing it to Star Trek, but I think I might just cut the Star Trek stuff out because it was kind of forcing Star Trek onto something that was very personal, which
Yeah.
I'm happy to do. I like doing that. I've done that before, but for this one, it just felt like it was more of a reach than was necessary. But anyways, the point that I guess I wanted to make with it was when I first came out as trans, and this is from what I've seen very typical of a lot of trans people, is that we tend to like become hyper feminine of trans women specifically, like
Yeah.
hyper the version of femininity that we saw because it's like, oh, that's something that we wanted so much, and so we try to affirm that. And we try to be like, all right, I'm going to become super feminine. I wear dresses all the time. I wear all the makeup. I mean, I literally learned my makeup skills from drag queens, which is like the most performative of version of femininity out there. I mean, that's literally what they're doing. And they were just the friends that I had that knew how to do makeup at the time. And so, when I come out, it's this very hyper performative version of femininity. And as I began to feel more comfortable in my own identity as a woman, you kind of settle on finding more what's more comfortable and finding more of like what's for you. Like I even worried about when I came, I was like, can I like Star Trek anymore? Can I play video games? Because women don't like those things, which is also a whole other conversation. But anyways, so I started settling down and finding that like, as you can see now, I like having a much more gender neutral slash like feminine masculine presentation. And that's something that I really enjoy doing. And outside of gender confirmation surgery, which I got,
Yeah.
which is something I knew I wanted from the beginning. Uh, I How to put it? It's like I didn't want to get facial feminization surgery, and I didn't want to get breast augmentation surgery just a few years ago because it felt like going back into that version of performative femininity, and I didn't want to feel like I was trying to fit this mold of a stereotype of a woman. And I didn't want to fit the stereotype of not pretending, but like just a performance that wasn't who I was. So I very much fought against that. And I also didn't want it to be about doing something for other people. Like, oh, I want to look sexy or beautiful so that other people would find me attractive.
Yeah.
So I very much fought against that. But as I've gone on, and as I've like the past few years, as I become more and more accepting of my identity and learning that I actually identify more as what I'd call a demi woman, someone who's not fully a man, not fully a woman, but generally so non-binary, but generally leaning towards female.
Yeah.
I like to play with gender, but I like to play with gender coming from a place of being a woman. It's so difficult to explain because it's even difficult in my own head. And I I like to play with gender, and I also like to, I don't know, I like to be read as a woman first and then play with gender from there. And I feel like when I play with gender, I often don't get read the way that I want to be read, and I feel uncomfortable in that moment because of that. And so I would like the canvas of who I am in my body to be more in line with how I like to play within my gender. And getting breast augmentation and facial feminization or surgery is part of that. And then also on top of that, I also realized that part of my resistance to those things was, again, like I said, not doing it for other people, and worried that it's like not to do with gender, but like um, beauty dysphoria that like a lot of women have and a lot of people in society have, like
Sure.
expectations of beauty. And but like also realizing like, I mean, it's shitty that society does that, but it's also okay to want those things. It's okay to want to have that version of femininity if that's what makes you happiest and comfortable. If having bigger breasts and having the face like that, a more feminine, quote unquote, feminine looking face makes me happier and more comfortable, that's okay, in my opinion. Because, I mean, what's the difference between me as a trans woman wanting to get breast augmentation versus a cis woman wanting to get breast augmentation? You know, it's like
It's true.
we both are, just because mine may be caught up in more gender stuff than normal, it's still coming from the same place. And if it makes me feel sexier, if it makes me feel more comfortable, more attractive, and also if it does, I mean, part of beauty is for other people. It is for how you aesthetically look to others. But as long as like it's couched in like, I like that part of it because it makes me feel good as well, I think that that's a totally fine impulse and desire to pursue in many ways. And it's just so mired in so many layers, it's been hard to articulate because, yeah, it's just something I realize that I want and that I want to do and that I'm very comfortable with doing. But it's also mired in stuff that I'm not entirely like, society is crap and society is crap towards women, it's crap towards trans people, but it's also something that I have to acknowledge that I want, and that's okay. So sorry for that really long rant.
No, it the entire idea of doing these is for the other person to say what's on their mind,
Yeah.
and talk about specific topics. The only thing I'll say, my mom is very high femme, um, and so I I already had my high femme time. Thankfully, the late '70s and early '80s was a really good time to do high femme,
Yeah.
and I didn't have to be, I didn't have to label any of it, but um,
Yeah.
but I'm still in the place in transition where I'll catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror and go, oh wow, oh okay. Yeah.
Isn't that's like one of the best parts of being trans? I adore that moment when you like, you avoid the mirror for so long, and then you like, it's been like a few months or weeks or whatever, and then you catch yourself and you're like, oh hey, look at you. So,
the Yeah, and I pass a lot more often now, and
well, you look wonderful.
now that I'm not caking on the makeup like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, um,
And sorry, you made me think of like another thought. Like, to give like a concrete example of what I was talking about, it's like, for example, I guess it's like, I actually don't particularly I like this longer hair, but I like kind of like, you see I part it on one side, and I would like
yeah,
to have a more masculine, quote unquote, masculine type cut where it's like, I want to do the shaved head, slightly shorter hair look. Because that's just the way I like my hair. But I worry when I do that, like sometimes when I wear my hair like that, unless I'm like wearing a lot of makeup or like dressed up in a certain way, I often get read as like a guy, and I'll get like sirred all the time when I do that. And it's like, I would very much prefer to be able to play with my gender in that way and still be read as a woman. And part of that would be like having a bigger breast or a face that read more feminine. And those are areas of my body that I also feel comfortable expressing in that way.
Yeah.
So it's like, if it allows me to express other parts of myself in the way that I want to, while also making me feel more comfortable in those specific areas of my body, why not go for it, you know?
Well, when I first had these things, that was one of the, it made me feel better, and I'm not happy with just over A. I'm just under B, just over A.
Yeah.
And so those are C, specifically, and it's not something I'm not considering. But I'm busy getting comfortable in a body where it feels different when I sit down.
Yeah.
It's just the tiny things I'm still getting used to.
Yeah, no, it is the tiny things that like that matter the most in a lot of ways, though. But.
Yeah, I'm hoping I will come to. Hoping I will come to love my vagina when it happens at the end of the summer.
I want to talk about that. Sorry, someone's knocking at my door. I think my roommate might need me. One quick pause.
Oh, that's fine.
Hey, what's up?
So, yeah, one of the cool things about Jessie, just in general, I think because she's so open, it's been fascinating to listen to her channel in general. So everybody do
I'm
that.
sorry about that. They're fixing up piping in my apartment. They need to get in my room in a little bit, but I still have about 30 more minutes. So.
Oh, okay. We're running long anyway, so that's
yeah. So sorry about that. Apologies on that.
Not a problem. I'm not even cutting it out. I said nice things about you while you were gone. I honestly did. Go if you want to watch the playback.
Well, thank you. But yeah, no, they're fixing up my apartment, so it's been hectic, but thankfully it's almost over. So
that's fine. This whole thing started with the three separate sections of your channel, which I'm trying to promote from a place of much fewer subscribers than you have.
I mean, it's like we were talking about before. The YouTube game is it's about playing the game. It's not even necessarily about content. Like what's funny is like I spend all this time working on videos that I'm really proud of. Like I did a Watchmen video a few weeks ago that I adored. I loved that video so much, and it didn't do anything. And then I do like my Picard. Yeah, it barely. I mean, it was one of my lower performing videos. And then I do my Picard reviews, which I love doing the reviews. They're fun and I enjoy them and I love discussing them. But like I crap those out the night of at 3 a.m. after I watch Picard. I watch Picard, take some notes, and then I rant at the camera for 30 minutes. And then something like Watchmen where I wrote it, got a costume, tried to edit it up really nice. So it's like quality does not necessarily equate to doing well. YouTube's not the only place where we've seen that, but
that's true.
But it's YouTube is more about playing the game, so it's not really about the quality of your content. So I don't know where I was going with that, but I guess the long short of it is the content you make, because I've seen a lot of it, is absolutely wonderful, and I think you do a great job interviewing and do a great work like capturing people's stories, especially YouTubers in this space that don't usually have their stories captured in this way. And so I think the stuff that you do is absolutely wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't fishing for a compliment. I honestly wasn't.
I know you weren't, and that's part of why I wanted to give it.
Thank you. people have been making me cry on camera recently. Well, someone made me cry on camera, and now I can't stop. uh, the well, no, I going back into your I had watched a couple of things here and there when they came across my radar, and until the Women of Star Trek, which I actually watched before Steve recommended it to me, and I don't know why I wrote my comment the way I did, but
No, it's important to recognize I owe quite a bit to Steve. Like my channel, I mean, not that my channel is like the biggest in the world, but I've certainly got a lot of attention and subscribers and views from Steve being so kind. Like I literally just for that video, I just sent him a message on Twitter because he followed me, and I didn't expect him to respond and actually want to be part of it. And it's a small thing. He just did voices for it, but it was super kind. And then the fact he promoted it on his video of his own volition. I didn't ask him to do that. I didn't know he was going to do that. I just popped on the video and he had done it, and it was very kind. And I owe a lot of my channel's growth to his kindness and generosity and his support of me. And I think he's not saying like we're helping me is helping the trans community as a whole, but he just is a wonderful ally to trans people. And I adore Steve on many levels, and I'm very thankful to him. So.
At the end of the one he did that he and I did. So let's make this a Steve love fest for me.
Steve, we love you. If you're watching, you're wonderful.
Yes. He said, "Was there any doubt in your mind that if you asked me when you asked me to come, I would come on?" I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
Yeah.
And my reaction was, yes, absolutely. Are you kidding me? I have a kind of top limit to how many, how popular someone is if I'll ask them to come on, because a lot of people I got burned a bit by it. And I'm very appreciative of you just interacting with me in general, because I enjoy your company.
I enjoy your company too. You are absolutely wonderful. And I don't know, there are YouTubers. I mean, to talk about one other thing too that I want to talk about is like to promote others. There's a really wonderful community of YouTubers that I've been lucky enough to kind of take part in, and are wonderful human beings. Like I got to do with Steve as well, but part of the Captain Picard Day project I did was trying to build and recognize the community of Star Trek YouTubers specifically, who are really wonderful people and kind people who don't necessarily get a lot of attention, because the biggest attention generally goes to the most hyperbolic or even toxic people. And they're like, I mean, I'm not gonna be able to mention them all, but Ket Wolski, Triangulum Studios, Tex Trek, that Star Trek guy. There's really wonderful, amazing people that just don't get a lot of attention. And I just want to I guess the point I'm trying to make, I kind of lose the thread as I keep going, but but I guess it's just like there are wonderful people out there who don't get a lot of attention and are doing a lot of really good work. And part of, what I think Steve does so well, and what I want to try and continue in honor of what he's done for me, is try to help promote and talk about the wonderful community that is out here on YouTube, and people who are willing to engage with people and support people who are, have less subscribers than them, and people who have more subscribers than them, or the same subscribers as them. There's a great community here. And I think sometimes that gets lost or missed in the fact that there's a lot of toxic people on here too.
One of the reasons I have decided in the last hour that I am going to do the first reaction, because as I said, I really haven't seen much of the original series, and what I have seen was 40 years ago. And
Sorry, they're just working outside, so I was just making sure.
that's okay. Um,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You
it's
should.
Los Angeles color.
You totally should do that. It is. I would be very excited to see that, and I think it'd be a lot of fun, and also just fun to see like more trans perspective on like the original series and Star Trek in general. Like, as much as people say like you're the trans Star Trek YouTuber, and I love how you connect those stuff. It's like I am not the definitive take on a trans person's reaction to Star Trek, and so I think we need more diversity of opinion on that, and I think that's you should totally do that.
I'm definitely going to do that. I've already watched, as I say, I watched the oh, I put silly names on them, but the puny. I watched the salt chick. The
The man trap, which is almost just as bad.
yeah.
Oh god, thinking about that, the man trap. Oh god, that is such a terrible name for that. Anyways,
I've watched It's a Good Life in Space, and Puny Mortals. So
Puny Mortals is pretty much 90% of Star Trek.
Well, I've been warned now. The in general though, I've liked your content. I'm as soon as you said that your Watchmen thing didn't get a lot of attention, my brain just shut down for a minute because I'm like, there are two things that I think that are the best things you've done, and especially now going back and watching it, I'm going, yeah, these are still the best things.
I thought that was gonna do really well. I thought that was one of my best I've ever done, and I was kind of saddened that it didn't do well. But like I said,
I'm working on a response to it. That's how I don't do response because there are other things that I thought, okay, this is stuff I wanted to that I want to just sort of tangent off of where you went.
Yeah.
Which I think because you did a brilliant job, and I said, okay, but there's another area over here I want to explore. It's like, so you're gonna make me actually do scripted videos. God damn
it! Good. Come feel the anxiety of actually scripting something.
I've done scripts, and I have at least one uncredited movie. So.
Oh, hey. If I may ask, what movie are you allowed to say?
You are not. I am not allowed to say.
Gotcha.
For various reasons, and
gotcha. No worries.
But I'll tell you later.
Off camera.
Yes. It is actually difficult to switch from fiction writing to now. I've written a bunch of training manuals.
Oh, shoot.
Like long training manuals, which is a mind-numbing job.
I would expect so, yeah.
And I've written several novels, and yet it's this weird little thing I did in 1986 that continues to sell. I don't know how things work either.
Yeah. It's you just hit the zeitgeist or the SEO or the algorithm or whatever the hell in just the right way that it's like, yeah, that's great. And it's like, but I spent so much time on this other thing that I'm really proud of. But I mean, we are not the first artists to feel that. I'm sure there are many, many authors and writers and creators who are like, yeah, this thing I crapped out did great, and this thing I spent my life on is my heart and soul. No one even read. So it's just the eternal artist problem.
Sure, I've been watching some Dutch thing behind the song, because I'm fascinated by songwriting. And the guy who wrote "Eye of the Tiger," um, you'd think, as tired as he'd be of having that one hit, his friggin' Lamborghini has I Tiger on.
Hey, own it. If you got it, own it. You know, it's great. So,
uh,
yeah, but yeah, I'm like I said, I'm just gonna keep the thing. I've just realized is like I'm going to try and marry my content a little bit more to like chasing the bear of like trying to promote and do better, because I would like to do this full time, and so part of that is playing the game a little bit. But I always want to try and make sure I marry that with content that actually feels like I want to make. I don't want to just do it just to do it. I'll try and do it. I'll try and find things that I want to do that I think will do well, but I never want to do something just because it will do well. And so that's sort of trying to be my guiding principle.
it's not a bad move.
Yeah.
The Definitely go back and watch more Doctor Who, though. I mean, you notice in my comments on your Doctor Who videos, I'm always okay. This is a reference to Third Doctor.
Yeah. And the only Doctor Who classic Who thing I've seen is the Five Doctor special, because I watched that because I was like, that'll give me a good taste of all of them, and it's the only one I ever saw, and it's probably not the best one to have watched.
And
But
it's so terrible in so many ways.
yeah, I mean, I was like watching, I'm like, I don't know what the hell is happening. I'm gonna go back to David Tennant now.
But this week's is we have a disagreement over the short trek. So the girl who touched the stars, because I'm terrible with titles. Is that the right title?
Girl Who Made the Stars.
The Girl Who Made the Stars is my favorite of them.
Hey, and that's cool. I love that. I love that something that I'm like, this is disposable, is like someone else's like their favorite thing. That's like the best part of art, and we don't have to agree on something. Everyone should know this. It's good to not agree with someone on your favorite art.
Hey, yeah. My ex loves the Hudson School of painters, and I can't stand them. I like Rothko and stuff. So.
I cut you off about Girls May Starts, though. I probably should let these guys in soon. But.
Okay. No, that's fine, because we're hitting an hour, so I was going to wrap up anyway. I have noticed, speaking of playing the game, if you go over an hour, then you're done.
Yeah. Well, I would love to have there's so much we didn't even talk about, and I would love to do another one if you ever have time.
I always have the time. You please, I want a part 2.
Yeah, I would adore that. And in fact, I would even go for even longer if I didn't have people literally knocking at my door. So,
just quick to finish the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
This week's Doctor Who is one of my favorite of all time.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't like it on the first. I didn't quite like it on the first sit. So
my first go around, I didn't hate it. I had issues with it, and I've sat with it since watching it last night and doing my review. I have changed many opinions on it. Sorry, you're hearing
there you go. Okay, as before the walls crumble down, I will say I have to do the YouTube prayer, as I call it.
Yes. Like, comment, share, subscribe. All hail the algorithm.
Yes, there's about give it a like if you liked it, and you should, because Jessie is wonderful.
And you're wonderful. Don't forget that.
Stop. And please subscribe. I talk to not just trans creators, but I try and concentrate on trans creators. And then hit the bell, hit the all, because you want to see all of these people. I want to see all of these people. That's why I asked them here.
And I hit the bell because sorry to keep promoting you, but I also hit the bell to see you. So make sure. So everyone watching this video, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell to see more from this wonderful human right here.
Oh gosh, see, I'm losing it here.
I'm sorry. But I also want to make sure you give yourself credit, because you deserve it.
Well, thank you. I just like people, so maybe that's why all I care about. I like people, and I'm bringing people on who intrigue me, or who I like, or all of the above. Okay, so they're knocking. I am hearing them knocking down your wall. So
Yeah, I'm sorry.
let me rush. Let me rush through the rest of it. Please
I
leave
didn't
a
know that they were
comment.
coming. I'm sorry.
Leave a comment. I will reply to as much. Well, I don't get that many, so I'll reply to all of them right now. But uh, and tell your friends about it because I don't have any friends. Uh,
Well, you have me. You have me at the very least.
yes, I absolutely. I have very good friends, and I'm very. I'm glad. I'm an atheist, but I'm still blessed. So.
Agnostic, so yeah, I know the feeling.
All right, I will talk. Yes, we will schedule a part two because
Good.
there's I, I got to question 1 through 3 out of 20. So
That's also me. We went on many tangents, which is a good thing. But yeah, that's my bad too. I can never stay on track. So
I absolutely adored it. It was none of these are ever as I expected. So I'm good. If it was just what I was expected, it would bore the hell out of me.
good.
So for the audience, your voice matters, your life matters, and you matter. And goodbye, my lovely darlings, and goodbye to Jessie.
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Good night. Okay. Stop. Yeah. Okay. Because I don't actually cut anything out, but.